Hi, YouTube. There are things that crack me up sometimes. And so you make a video about it. Does that change anything? No. People dig their heels in pretty good, and they are the way they are. And unfortunately, a lot of people are pretty closed-minded. I'm not talking about anybody specific. I'm sure you've seen many examples in your own life. Just tell you a quick story. Tell you a couple quick stories. So a couple weeks ago, my son was in basically the final tournament of the year for basketball. And he ended up losing to a team, basically their rivals, that, they really had no business losing to. And it was really weird. They practiced really well, and then once the game started, they just didn't have it. These are 12-year-old kids, so you're going to see ups and downs. Maybe they were pushed too hard. Maybe they were overconfident. Who knows? But there's one play that really symbolized the game for me. Right, the gym was split between, one side of the room is you're rooting for your team, the other side is rooting for the other team. And underneath the basket, two kids on the same team ended up with the ball at the same time, and they were basically trying to wrestle it away from each other. And when they ended up trying, and everybody in the bleachers were yelling, "Same team!" And they either didn't hear it or whatever. Again, they're 12-year-old kids. And anyway, the ball ended up popping out and going out of bounds. And the possession arrow went to the other team. It's like, it really symbolized the frustration of that game. And it also came to mind about how the silver community really rips itself apart. And it's really, it fascinates me. And again, a video like this isn't going to change that at all. Okay? I get that. But there's so many, the argument isn't what type of silver or gold do you buy. The fact that people are buying silver or gold, no matter what the form, is a huge positive to me. Now, there was one guy, he used to post on our videos a couple years ago. This kid was severely depressed. A very clinically depressed young man, and I always felt really bad for him because I knew that he was going through some real struggles. Okay, and I tried to be as nice to him as possible. I sent him emails, trying to encourage him, and I haven't seen him post in a long time, and honestly, I am concerned that he may not even be with us anymore. Okay, he was that depressed, and he didn't have any money. Well, one time he bought a panda, one panda, and I believe it was a 2012 panda, and he made a video about it. Well, a longtime stacker came onto his channel and just chewed him a new ass, okay? He blasted him because instead of buying that panda, he should have bought a generic round and apparently a mercury diamond, a war nickel. That as silly as it sounds, that was really the difference between a generic round and this panda. The panda was sold for like $1 more than an eagle, whatever. And this was a silver guy. Okay? And he just absolutely laid into him. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So there's a little bit of, words on the channel about, geez, leave the kid alone. Let him buy a panda if he wants to buy a panda. The irony, of course, is that this person had been stacking forever. And if he had been buying pandas starting in 1983, the guy would be a multimillionaire. Okay, so now whether or not he was projecting his own failings, look, I get it. I get that that's a big thing, and I'm not saying that's the same thing going forward, right? Buying pandas in 2015 is one heck of a lot different than buying pandas in 1983. But the point is, name any year, starting in 1983, and tell me where you would have been better off buying generics over pandas. And I'll wait. I'll cue up the Jeopardy theme and I'll wait. The answer is there wasn't a year. Okay, so this kid basically did what this other person should have been doing right along. In retrospect, I get it. It didn't fit into his ideology and everything else. But why not leave the kid alone? And part of me, it's so weird. It's like, he stacked through all that dead period where nobody cared about silver. Like, literally, they were giving silver away like they would copper rounds, right? Sometimes you'll go to like a coin show and they'll just give you a copper round because it's basically worthless. And it was the same way with silver at one point, where just nobody cared about it. And he probably thought to himself the entire time, why doesn't anybody get this? Why am I the only one that seems to get this? And then finally it happens, And then people come along and they have a nuanced approach. Well, that can't stand. Got to fight it. Got to fight it with that. So we're not going to argue with the Keynesians. We're not going to argue with the big government guys. We're not going to argue with the guys that are advocating severe money printing. We're going to argue with people that basically have the same viewpoint as us, just a small nuance to it. It just doesn't compute to me. There was one guy who has a pretty big channel, and I was listening to him one time, and I really respect this guy's intellect. However, I do find him a little bit arrogant, okay? And what he said was really made me think really hard. He basically said that the silver community brings down the financial discourse on YouTube. The silver community is so stupid that they take these high-level conversations that basically I have with a few people, and it's a whole regression to the mean. These guys are such idiots. And I listened and I said, wow, that's how they perceive us. That's the perception that they have of us. Any of us that believe in hard assets, any of us that believe in smaller government, any of us that believe in fiscal sanity, we're the idiots. So how much heat did this guy get from Silver Stacker? None. Zero. Nobody challenged him on his words. They were too busy yelling at some kid for buying a panda. Again, I know that a YouTube video isn't going to change anything, okay? It would just seem to me that for the most part, those of us that buy silver and gold have basically the same fundamental view of the world, and yet we rip each other to shreds. That'll never make sense to me, to be honest with you. It will just never make sense to me. I know some of it's ego. You know, I want to be right. The problem is, time will be the great judge. You know, if you were arguing with somebody in 1983 that they should be buying generics, you should be buying art bars for Spot over pandas, I think it'd be safe to say that in 2015, if you were to revisit that debate with that person, if a 32-year debate is even possible, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to say, yeah, I think I was right. Remember I was buying $15 coins and they're worth $2,000 now? Yeah, I think I got that one. Pretty sure I got that one in the bag. Okay? Time will tell. You know, I remember I was busting Silver Siren's chops. She had made a video, and in a good-natured way. She had done a video on the Venetian glass frog from the Royal Canadian Mint, and I just shook my head. I thought it was the most absurd coin I ever saw. Until she sent me a link to an auction on eBay for the Ladybug Venetian. Now, understand, I'm not advocating these coins at all, believe me. Okay, I still can't even believe that they have this kind of market. But I just looked, and recently one sold for like over $1,000. A 3-year-old coin. I'd say that's a pretty good performance, wouldn't you? In the face of silver getting crushed the way that it had, a coin selling for over $1,000 because it has a glass ladybug on it. That's one of the reasons why I simply don't get into the should I buy this, should I buy that. Look, I have a very narrow approach on what I buy, and I'm very confident with my strategy, but I let people buy what they're going to buy. I've heard stories during the Argentinian currency collapse and during other currency collapses that people traded in their wedding rings. Sorry, guys. That people traded in their wedding rings for things that they needed. That little bit of gold that they had, that's all they had was a little bit of jewelry. It's very sad. Trading in family heirlooms for the basics. And you know, when you think about it like that, maybe somebody's coin collection, if the scenario that some of you think plays out the way that you think it's going to play out, perhaps their coin collections could end up saving their bacon. Who knows? all I can say is that this channel was simply supposed to be for gold and silver enthusiasts and a way to talk about this stuff. What new coin releases, stuff that we enjoy watching, price performance on different coins. That's all it's meant to be. Okay, maybe sometimes a little bit of commentary on the way the world is. All I know is that the big debate out there is not about what type of silver or gold to buy. The big debate out there is the way that the world is structured. The rich getting richer, the middle class shrinking, money printing versus austerity, and everything else that's happening. Okay, solutions to some of these problems. How do we fix Social Security? These are the real problems, and this is the real divergence in views that people have, us versus them. Not, should I buy a Mercury dime or a Kookaburra, okay? Again, I know it's never going to change, but it is what it is. But I've always found it fascinating the way that the silver community eats their own.